All right, so okay, so we have our account. So in its home directory /code. Let's see. Is there anything else that I don't think there's anything else, right? So I don't think I need to give like even a summary for this. It's like it's done. So here, are you done, Zilby? Oh, he saw the food behind the chair. Yeah, I'm gonna move this. That's where I normally feed him. That's my bribe food. Let's see. Okay, so it's home directories code. Here is the full updated Docker file. Okay, I think we decided that we wanted to remove everything that starts with a hash, which I think is fine. So we're going to remove all the comments from this. Just to make it shorter and a little bit easier to see. So we have our from, we have our 2 runs to create that. We have our expose, our env, our run, our code, our volume, okay, our workdir. Okay, so everything is looking good. So then it means, okay, so let's write you. Oh, Zilby's heading out? Okay. You can't get him to stay for very long. Now he's got food, he wants to go explore. There was some construction outside and I was causing some of the squirrels to like come out and look at it, and so he was really interested in them outside. So he might want to go back up to watch some cat TV out the windows. Okay, so that is everything manually set up for this 2 container system, this 2 container workup. So now that we've built that, now we can basically tell everybody, now you don't have to do any of that, and Docker Compose can just replace it all for you, which is great. All right, so let's create a new file for this. This is, I guess we'll do a Docker Compose. All right, so we can automate a lot of the commands required for setting up Docker using Docker Compose. This allows us to create a single, like a YAML file. Okay, so over the years, let's see, called compose dot, is it YAML or I think it doesn't matter, right? I don't think it matters if it's YAML or YAML. Okay, so this allows us to create a YAML file in the root of our project called compose.yaml. The previous version it was Docker Compose, right? It was Docker Compose .yaml. Okay, so if you see any documentation that requires Docker-compose instead of just compose, be aware that it's for a previous version. Okay, let's go ahead and start creating these. So okay, we're out at the beginning. We're going to touch a compose.yaml file. If I jump into it, okay, yeah, we do get LMS support, so we do get some help with this. So the version, okay, so every time that I use where is the actual reference? Oh, there it is. It's under overview. No, okay, that's not it. This is not, okay, compose file. Okay, that's not it either. Why did they make this so hard to find? Like, try compose wouldn't have it. This just takes me back to overview. That's multiple Docker Compose files. I'm not caring about that. That's not okay. So it's not in here. Oh my gosh, why do you have to? Oh wait, reference. Oh wow, so it's a completely different section here. Okay, so it's reference, compose specification. Oh wow, okay. Okay, so this is where that comes in. Every time I write a Docker Compose file, I keep the reference documentation up on a second window. Second window. It's not really necessary, or I guess like a second window. I don't bother remembering, memorizing. Just how it works. Okay, so okay, so we'll put the just so I don't forget that. Don't know if it'll be like Docker Compose. I might just have to call this like YAML. Okay, so then in here, version is not necessary. I just stopped using it because every time I look at it, the version thing just pisses me off. I don't know why Docker did this. A lot of other decisions that Docker has made make a lot of sense, and I really like it. But if we take a look at version here, it says that version property is defined by the compose specification. For backward compatibility, it is only informative. The problem that I have with this is now I feel like they can't make any breaking changes anymore to the Docker Compose document or the specification in the case that like something comes up in the future, because there's literally no version that they can like lock it to anymore. So it's just there for backwards compatibility, so I can say something like 1.2 or 1.1 or 0.7 or whatever previous version of Docker Compose that we were using. So we don't use it at all. The name property is for the name. If we don't care about everything else, but we are using otherwise it takes the name of the file that we're in, I think, or the folder. I'm pretty sure. Like it's pretty smart about figuring out what the name should be. So I generally don't use the name either. Okay, services. Services is important. We need that. So services property, and so inside of here, oh, did you decide you're not? Oh, cool. Oh, right, services. So these are our services. So what we're gonna put in. So we have two services, right? We have our Express, and we have our let's do it in that order. So we have our Express CRUD app, But then we also have our database. All right, so you're upset at me here. Will you tell me what's wrong? Yeah, incorrect type. So basically, I'm missing things from inside of here. So let's see. We have the develop property. What? I don't think I've ever used the develop property. Specifies the development configuration for maintaining a container in sync with source as defined in the development section. Is this new? I don't remember this. Compose focuses on the development use case of running applications on a local machine. It also supports some development hooks to improve the velocity of your local workflow, also known as your inner loop. This document defines how Compose behaves to efficiently assist the developer. This section defines the development constraints and workflows set by Compose. Only a subset of Compose file services may require a develop subsection. Okay. Oh, this is where we put Watch. So Watch came out very, very recently. And I've always wanted to try it. I haven't had an excuse yet. So this will be it. So is that it? Yeah, the only thing that we have in here is Watch. Okay, I am going to hold off on Watch, and we'll do this after everything else because I want to do a one-to-one right now. So Docker Watch will be, okay, so service develop will be important later. So this will be fine, but I need to that search. Did I just forget how to comment, how to put the comment thing in? I think I did. Okay. Your comment is hash, right? Yeah. Okay, what else do we have in here? So we have deploy. I've not used deploy, but this is on deploy or how to deploy. We don't need this. And I'm not going to go over deploying through Docker Compose, so we're going to be fine. Annotations, I don't ever use annotations really. Attach. What's attach for again? Attach is... When attach is defined and set to false, Compose does not collect service logs until you explicitly request it to. Yeah, so I've never used it to like turn off service logs or something. It's always just been let to be default. Let's see, build. Okay, so this is gonna be building a container. So we do have a container for this one. So I want to do build. And then it's gonna be Docker file, and then I think this is the location of it, so that's gonna be dot. Interesting. I'm not a huge fan of it saying like, hey, here's build, go take a look at the docs over here. It's like, okay, thank you. I guess there is a lot to it, but I feel it used to all be in one file previously, and to me that was fine. So we're a Docker file. Okay, so we need the context and then a dot, right? So Docker file sets an alternative Docker file, so I don't need that. I think I just need... Do I even need this at all? I might just build a build, do build, and then tell it where it is. That's all I think all I need. So build, and then just go to doc. So that this is where Docker file is, so we'll be fine. Okay, so after build, and then we're not going to do build for the other one, right? Because the other one is an image that's coming directly from what's it called? Docker Hub. I'm not, okay, so the CPU stuff allows us to lock things down and say like, hey, you're only allowed this much CPU. For development purposes, I want it to be like multiple of them. Oh, it might be worth mentioning how it works with multiple Docker files. Oh yeah, like if we have multiple Docker files there, yeah, that might be a good idea, good thing to put in there. So I'm thinking that what I can do is we'll go through one at a time. We'll say like, hey, we only have one Docker file in here, so we're just going to do the build, the simple build one. But in the documentation, build also has like a Docker file where we can tell it which Docker file to use, and then context where it is. So that's a good idea. Catch, hello. How are you doing today? You have a question. Let's say when you do npm run dev, your app runs on localhost 8000. Now, when you run your Docker file, how exactly does routing work, like port and domain? So I have an example of that working right now. And new. There. Okay, so we have Docker PS. Okay, so I have inside of this top one here. Let me full screen this. So express CRUD name, that is an express. So it's basically it's a backend app that's running on localhost port 3000. So very similar to yours, instead of 8000, 3000. And so what I'm doing over here on this side is when I do Docker compose, when I do Docker run, I then say I want -p for port 4001:3000. And now from the host system, I can access the inner port 3000 through 4001 on my local system. So that's the local side, right? On this side, we have a Docker Postgres container, and that is exposing port 5432, but I'm not actually listening to it from my host system. So it's only accessible through other Docker containers. And so express CRUD name, this container, because it's on the same network, essentially, and I used the -- network equals and then gave it the same network for both of them, then it's able to connect to express CRUD PG through the host name express CRUD PG port 5432. Does that answer your question, Catch? Oh, one day, yeah, all you had to do is in the Docker file was set it to 0000. Okay, yeah, that's the other thing. So localhost is an interesting name. So by default, localhost ends up being something like 127.0.0.1, which is basically it's going to be, there's a lot to it, and I've forgotten a lot about like the really true like core Linux networking stuff that's going on. But the difference between 0000 and 127.0.0.1 is that 0000 is like everything, like available and go out through every port and all that stuff. And if you do that on your own system, that would be considered a security like violation. But in a Docker file, in a Docker container, that's perfectly fine because it's like only the one thing that's sitting there, and that's okay at that point in time. The only way to get around that, if you're not using 000, from my understanding, is to use something like Nginx, which would then route your traffic to the appropriate ports and loopback address. So yeah. Freaker, hello. How are you doing today? Can you show how you can run an image with VNC or desktop? Let's see. Oh, you can also try finding out the Docker container's own IP. Yeah, that's the other thing is like, yeah, if you find out the Docker container's own IP, then that would allow you to connect to it. That there's some crazy networking stuff you can do with your host system, which I would just say like, don't do, just use 0000 inside the Docker container. And that's why I like Docker containers, because if I want to run a server, run it in there, not run it locally. Okay, so can we show how to run an image with VNC or desktop? What do you mean? Do you mean like actually connect to a Docker container through a graphical interface? Like actually like see the desktop running inside the Docker container? I've heard people doing that in the past, but I've never done it myself, and it's not really like, I don't know if I want to ever like to suggest and show that to people. That feels like more of an advanced type thing to do. But I have heard people doing that. I don't know how I feel about it. So unfortunately, I don't, it would take me a while to figure out how to do it properly, and it would be different for every system, right? Like for a Linux system, it would be one way. For a Mac, it'd be another way. For a Mac of a different version, it would be a different way, probably. For different types of Linux systems, it'd probably be different. For Windows, it'd be very different. So unfortunately, basically the crux of it is that you need to connect a lot of your visual stuff into the Docker container, because Docker images aren't VPSs on their own right. They don't include a lot of the stuff for visual stuff. So they're not made for that. That's not their primary use case. So what you end up needing to do is sort of do hacky stuff to like get access, like give it access to graphical stuff through your own computer, through a clever usage of like volumes and other things, which is, well, I think I used the right word, hacky. It's a little bit hacky, but it can work. I've seen like I saw a demo of one person putting all of their apps into Docker to use. Like they put Firefox, they put Chrome, they put VS Code, they put like all of that stuff in there, and then like would connect it and use it through their systems that wouldn't have to install anything directly. But I don't know. I like it more for like just the development side of it and just running our code in it. So sorry I can't help out with that. Okay, so we have you. This is all good. Okay, so we have our build. So okay, let's do I want to build this first and then we'll add in everything? Yeah, let's build everything out first and make sure it works, and then I'll write the article. I think that makes more sense, because then we make sure it actually is working the way we expect it to. All right, so we have our build. So I don't need to put a command in, because the command that we're already going to be using here is inside of the inside the Docker file. So we're fine. Depends on, this is going to be important. So I want depends on, and it's this syntax here. So we're going to do depends on database. Oh, but we need to tell it the long syntax. So let's see, long syntax depends on condition service started. Yeah, okay, so depends on database condition service healthy. Oh, and then it's this not an array. It's like that. And then we have condition Ooh, service healthy. Ooh, what's those differences? Yeah, okay, so this service healthy is like the health check is passing, and then service completed successfully is that it's run to successful completion. So service healthy is what we want here because databases are really weird. It will finish running the up for the database container, but okay, so it's up, right? But then the container launches, the database launches immediately after that. And then potentially there's like some ups and downs of the database during that time, which really sucks. So if you need something to like run instantaneously and you're milliseconds away, you might have weird failures. And so the service healthy is probably what we want here. Okay, so there's the depends on. The other one has no depend, so that's fine. We're not going to do deploy. Okay, we have the develop thing. We don't need an entry point. Okay, env file. So we have a choice of doing environment ourselves or using an env file. We'll probably talk about the env file. I think it's env file and then a file name, right? Yeah, just like where the file name is. Now from here, we need to re-look at all of our environments that we're using. So let's take a look at Docker run. Okay, so for our CRUD network, we have no, it's that would be okay. So in this one, it's the let's see, this is okay, the Postgres one. So we have this Postgres password. So if I remember you, it's like that, and then keyboard cat. Are you not happy? Is that not how it works? Okay, no, that's how it works. Nothing else in here for that. Which means that over here we can go. Oh, and this is wrong. I want you down there. For you, we have these two environments. We have our port and DB URI. Okay, so we tell it basically our environment port is going to be on 3000. We also tell it where the DB URI is going to be. We're going to have to be really careful with this because this changes now, I believe. So at Postgres, so username Postgres, keyboard cat is the password. But this is no longer the host name where we're going to. Now it's going to be this database. And then the database is still named database. Okay, so we should be good to go there. Okay, so expose. So this defines the incoming port or range of ports that compose exposes from the container. These ports must be accessible to link services and should not be published to the host machine. So I don't believe I actually need to expose these things. I often do for documentation purposes, but I think it, yeah, here. If the Docker file for the image already exposes ports, it is visible to the other containers on the network. So the Postgres container already exposes 5432, and so therefore that's now set up everywhere else. And this is one of the reasons why putting the expose in the Docker file is helpful, because it makes Docker compose easier. Health check. Okay, so now we want to set the health check for both systems. So I'm gonna put this in the other window here. So for you, this is gonna be pretty simple. We can actually see what the health check is in the Docker file. Yes, this is what we have over here, which is slightly behind me, but that's okay. I'm gonna put it over here. Okay, so health check. We want an interval of 30 seconds. Vivex, you're having your first fight with the borrow checker this year. You made it this far without making it angry. Oh, nice! Congratulations. I feel that like having a first real fight with a borrow checker means that like you're running into that learning, like that area where learning is about to happen, that's always good, right? Cannot borrow self as mutable more than once at a time. And you know why? Okay. With that dereference in there. Okay, so we want actually this one has test first. So let's do that. We'll do our test first. And then this is gonna be our, now you have, it's a command. So the same way you see over here. And it's going to be curl -f localhost port 3000 health check. Now what's interesting is that this doesn't have the or exit one, but I think that'll actually work. We'll find out. Okay, so then we have our interval. Our interval over here is 30 seconds. We have our timeout. The timeout is also, we have set to 30 seconds. Retries, we have 3. Start period. So how long should it wait before it starts running? I think that's what that is. So we can just go 5 seconds. I don't have to wait that long. Just enough for the database to be going. Oh, but if you fix it, you run into another issue. Yeah, restructuring time. This is so this is what my mentor says. Like whenever I mention something about, oh, you fixed it, excellent, great. Whenever I mention something like oh, what is it called? I had the name, I had the word in my mind, and then I just completely blanked on it. Okay, you just had to add an explicit lifetime to a type. Nice, yeah. Okay, well that wasn't too bad. Okay, so there is a theory in a domain-driven design, which is one of the paradigms of sort of like writing code and have it in your mind, right? That if you run into pain, like let's say, and the borrow checker is great at like enforcing that you're in pain, right? Like it tells you, hey, I'm going to give you and cause you pain. You should do something different. Now, in this case, it sounds like all you had to do was add a lifetime to it. Time to turn on that setting that shows inlay hints for implicit lifetimes. Maybe that can be pretty. There could be a lot of lifetimes that go on in there that we don't see. But okay, so anyways, if we feel pain, it's sometimes that's the indication to refactor / rewrite / like change something. And then once we no longer feel pain, that means that we have the best possible design for the current moment in time for our code. Now there might be multiple best possible designs, and so but we don't know which one is the best one, right? We know that later, the closer to the end we have, and so just choose one at random, which is usually the first one you think of, and then just go with it until pain, and then change it around. And the more senior you are, the more you can sort of foresee which pain happens, and then you'll be able to avoid quite as many rewrites. But it's a really cool and interesting way of sort of like writing code, and also getting over fear of like, well, what if I need to change it later? And it's like, nope, I've already agreed that I will change it later. That's gonna be fine. So therefore, I don't have to worry about that. Okay, and then start interval. Yeah, so I did start period of 5 seconds and start interval. What does start interval do? Okay, so it's a we have the first wait, and then start interval is like after it waits again. That's interesting. True, the issue he had was that he had a method like something self the thing, but the thing actually takes a lifetime, an implicit tied to the self argument, but in reality it should have been another lifetime from the impl. Okay, yeah, Rust has gotten really good at like auto choosing which lifetime to use, so we don't have to use lifetimes manually. But every once in a while it's like, here, I'm going to use this lifetime, and you're like, haha, no, silly borrow checker, it's this lifetime. Will you tell me? Okay, so I think start interval is the time between health checks during the start period, whereas interval seconds after the container started, and then interval seconds after each previous check. Oh yeah, so it actually runs, so the health check, so I think this is something that we might not think of. The health check is running constantly. Like it's not like it runs a few times and then it's done. It's more of it runs forever. So you don't want this to be a heavy check, right? So start interval is just saying, I want you to wait 5 seconds and then start checking. And then if you fail within those, wait, I think is that what it is? Time between health checks during the start period. So during the start period, so during start period, we're still doing start interval checking. So I might want to say something like, wait for 30 seconds or something like that. So if you try once within here, go ahead and wait for another 30 seconds, then try, and then we're in normal mode. We'll need to do this over here now. And I believe that we can see... Did I have one with a health check? Oh, I never did a health check for our database. Okay. Is that okay? So what should we do then? It shouldn't be curl. It's gonna be some SQL command for this. So let's do a let's exec into our express grub pg. What's a command we can do in here to sort of like see that things are working? We can do psql maybe. Yeah, okay, so we could just run a single command and exit. So that's probably what we want to do. We could just list the available databases and exit. Okay, let's try that. So let's do run a single file. Now, when we run this, we won't actually have a Docker file set up. So we're gonna have to fix that. That'll be interesting. Okay, so let's do psql single command. Actually, let's do -l. -l. I want to connect to user Postgres. That gives me this list, which is okay. I'm looking for that specific database. So maybe I don't want that. Let's do command. The command should be maybe select star from tests. Okay, so that gives me these. Now there's nothing in here, but this should mean that our exit condition was 0. If I told it to run from something that doesn't exist, it would be a 1 error code. So that would be, this might be fine. So let's do this. So our command is going to be psql -c we'll do select star from tasks, because we know that tasks are in here, and that's what it is. Okay, that's good. Let's see then. Okay, our interval. So our start period, this could take a while. So let's say that our I think I can do something like we have 5 minutes. No, it's gonna be less than that. 1 minute as our start period. Our start interval is every maybe 10 seconds. During that time, we'll do 3 retries in case you fail. We'll do a timeout of 30 seconds for each command, but it should like be pretty fast. We can probably do something like 5 seconds for a timeout. For the interval between tests, we'll do a 1 minute, like 1 minute between each interval, and that should be like test every 1 minute. So if we do this, the idea is that this will stay failed up until the tasks table exists in the database, which obviously is not going to happen until we run the migration. So we're going to have to figure out something to do with that, which we'll get to. That there's a strategy for that. All right, so here's our health check. Okay, image. Image is nice. Image specifies the image to start the container from. Image must follow the open container specifications. This is actually pretty simple. And the only one, instead of build, we have an image down here. So image is going to be the image we're using over here for our database. And so we can see our image is just Postgres. Postgres latest is what we're using. And that's it. That's all we need for the image. Okay, so in Docker Compose, a default network will be created, and then everything inside of it is then added to that default network. So we don't need to set up any networking stuff ourselves unless we're doing shenanigans. So if you want to create a really complex system with multiple networks sort of talking together, that's where we're going to need to touch networks. So we don't need to touch this at all. It's going to do everything we need for us. Okay, ports. So these are the ports that we're going to expose to the host. So again, database, I don't want to expose anything. We're going to expose ports. I want port. Now, okay, we're using 4000 to 4001. So let's now do 4002 to 3000 inside. And that's all I need with ports. Profiles is interesting. Profiles, I've used in the past. I go back and forth on the usefulness of profiles. The problem I always run into is I forget what the profiles are, and that sucks. All right, but we're gonna take a quick break. I see that ads are starting in like 10 seconds or so. So I'm gonna go ahead and let those run. I'm gonna walk upstairs, go grab a drink. We'll probably switch over to sitting mode afterwards because Zilby abandoned us. Maybe I'll see if I can find Zilby too. So I will be right back. I'll go ahead and do that sitting mode transition now. You can hear the lovely sound of my desk. Huh, it still says ad starting soon. It hasn't started yet. Weird. Oh, you didn't hear anything? Okay. Last time I did it, it looked pretty loud over the microphone. So maybe this time it got filtered out. Okay, there it goes. Now the ad started. Okay, I'll be right back in 3 or so minutes. Okay, see you then.